Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne, and wow, have we got some stuff to talk about today. So, as I was going about my business yesterday, I discovered that Barilaro's former aide had done his it gave his evidence via it was done privately, but I actually have got a copy of the letter that went into transcript. So I wanted to just show you. I just did a Google search for John Barilaro, and I just want to show you what we're looking at the moment, because he is, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I have nothing to base it on, there is a little bit of issues here. So let's have a look. I just Googled John Barilaro. Look. Wow. Look, proposed. Barilaro's proposals to change trade postings was fast-tracked through cabinet. Former advisor tells inquiry John Barilaro expedited change to New York job. John Barilaro pushed to convert trade posts to ministerial role. Former staffer reveals dramatic evidence into John Barilaro saga. So the fact that I've referred to this as a saga is what the media is calling it, a saga. John Barilaro told aide that New York role would be his after he quit Parliament. Chaotic process leading to Barilaro appointment no clearer after lawyers' evidence. Now, what's also interesting, the Premier of New South Wales is actually going overseas at the moment. I don't know what he's going overseas for, but he's apparently trying to sort out on a trade mission. So, which is really quite ironic, considering that they were supposed to put in all these trade ministers to or trade positions to oversee all of that. But he's he's on a trade mission as his government is engulfed in turmoil after the Liberal cabinet. Oh, now the other thing that's happened. Not only have they got this big saga happening, but one of their ministers, or former a former minister, has been found to be guilty of corruption. So it says that the government's in turmoil after former Liberal cabinet minister was found corrupt, and an ex-senior coalition staffer claimed John Barilaro told him he was creating a plum job in New York for himself. So it's really, really interesting that ICAC has found a New South Wales government politician, was in fact corrupt. And we've got this Barilaro saga. Hello, plan to create. But Perrottet left Sydney, bound for Tokyo Wednesday night, after an extraordinary day in which the former chief of staff to former deputy premier Barilaro told his boss told him in 2019 that a future US trade role would be the job for when I get out of this place. Now, Barilaro has come out and rejected the claim. He's saying that this guy's made it up. Now, we have all this confusing evidence at this point in time. We've got the Investment Trade Commission boss, Amy Brown, giving us one set of facts. We've got Jenny West giving us another set of facts. We've got the General Counsel of the Investment Trade Commission giving us a different set of facts again. And now and the Premier and Stuart Ayres and Barilaro are all denying all their involvement, and yet it would seem that they're up to the armpits in poo here. So there is a big problem here. So the statement was published by the committee hours before the corruption watchdog revealed its findings that Drummond MP John Sidoti engaged in serious corrupt conduct for forcing Perrottet to call for his resignation, or else the government would trigger a vote of no confidence. Sidoti has refused the Premier's request, vowing to lodge an application in the Supreme Court to clear his name. So the Premier has told him to resign. He's told the Premier where to go. So now this is going to court. So the Premier is going to Tokyo, where he will formally official the Trade Commissioner's office, then head to South Korea and India, where the Minister for Enterprise, Investment and Trade, Stuart Ayres, will also join the Premier. The alleged conversation between Connell and Barilaro took place about April 2019, after Barilaro purportedly returned from a meeting with then Treasurer Perrottet and then Industry Minister Ayres to discuss the restoration of the Agent General position in the UK. After this meeting, Mr. Barilaro came directly to my office. He said, I've come from a meeting with Dom and Stewart regarding the trade, and we're going to bring back the Agent General in London, as well as a bunch of other postings around the world. Connell's statement now tabled in Parliament read, and I actually have the statement. Oh, look, here it is right here. So it's been published. So we're going to read the statement. So let's have a read of the statement. I told you I had the statement. So this is Mark Connell's statement. It says confidential, but it's now been published. Yes, his crocodile tears at his resignation speech and blaming the Defo case he started looks even more corrupt. Well, I want to know whether now he has to apologise to Jordan Shanks, who he sued over because it looks like the allegation of being a corrupt con man might actually be true. And remember, this is all just allegations. This is my opinion. So this is Mark Connell. Okay, so confidential statement to the Public Accountability Committee by Mark Connell, but it's public. Appointment of Mr. John Barilaro as Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner to the Americas. My name is Mark Connell, and I'm the former Chief of Staff to the Deputy Premier, John Barilaro. I held that position from April 2017 until December 2019, when it was mutually agreed that I relinquish my position due to Mr. Barilaro ceasing to take my advice and seeking outside counsel. My employment ceased in December 2019. Upon request, my written statement to the committee is as follows. I request that this statement as evidence is to be marked confidential. Well, that ship sailed. Regarding the matter of the appointment of the Mr. John Barilaro as Senior Trade and Investment Commissioner to the Americas, preceded by an independent inquiry, this Upper House Committee inquiry reports on public statements made by various ministers. I felt compelled to provide this statement as evidence to you. I have read the terms of reference, and my understanding is that my evidence falls within its remit. I believe in following the due processes of good government. An incident occurred in my role as Chief of Staff to Mr. Barilaro, which concerned this matter the committee is currently investigating. I strongly believe that my knowledge of this incident should be disclosed, as it may be of interest or of value for the committee to consider. Therefore, in the matter of public interest, I contacted the Honourable Penny Sharp and disclosed this incident to her. My conversation with Ms. Sharp has been limited to this specific matter. I refer to an incident which occurred in April 2019. I'm unable to identify the precise date because I no longer have access to my diaries. Now, I believe the committee can actually request a copy of the diary to ascertain the correct date from the department. I do believe that. So whether that happens or not, we'll find out. However, I'm confident it was the month of April 2019, as a meeting occurred for the relevant newly appointed ministers responsible for trade and investment. Mr. Barilaro had been appointed the New South Wales Minister for Trade approximately 1 month earlier and attended this meeting. Also in attendance was the then Treasurer, the Honourable Dom Perrottet, and the Honourable Stuart Ayres, who was appointed Minister of Investment. After this meeting, Mr. Barilaro came directly to my office. He said, I've just come from a meeting with Dom and Stuart regarding trade, and we're going to bring back the Agent General in London, as well as a bunch of other postings around the world. Then he stated, this is it. This is the job for when I get out of this place. I responded to Mr. Barilaro and stated, but John, the Agent General role will be filled well before you retire from this place. Mr. Barilaro said, I don't want to go to London. I'm off to New York. I responded and stated that our current office and staff are in California. Mr. Barilaro responded and stated, "I'll put one in New York. That's where I'm off to." The conversation in relation to this matter then ended. I did not have any knowledge, involvement, or discussions with any persons in relation to this particular matter prior to or preceding this isolated discussion with Mr. Barilaro. I learned of Mr. Barilaro's appointment to this position when it was announced by the media. This prompted my recollection of the discussion outlined above. It is for the committee to evaluate whether my evidence is of any interest to this matter. Thank you for providing me with an opportunity to submit evidence to the committee. So there's his full statement. So Barilaro rejected Connell's claims in a statement. So this is Barilaro says, the conversation he has recalled is fictitious, false, and only serves as a reminder as to why we had to part ways, Barilaro said. If this inquiry is genuine in its intent to understand the process and the truth by which I was appointed, then surely I would be called up to provide this detail immediately. The continued drip feed of select information from the inquiry into the public domain goes against procedural fairness. So Braz wants to say his piece. So it's interesting that now the guy that seems to be getting the blame is the assistant aide. So Connell is a long-time Liberal staffer and former Deputy State Director of the New South Wales Liberal Party. He's previously worked for former New South Wales Premier John Fay, advisor on the energy policy in Treasurer Matt Keane's office after leaving Barilaro's office. He's now a private consultant. Yes, totally clueless. He's there's a lot of poo hanging around here. In a statement, Perrottet said he had numerous discussions with Barilaro and Ayres in 2019 regarding the establishment of Global New South Wales. At no point in any of those discussions were ever raised that the former Deputy Premier may want to hold a Trade Commissioner role. Ayres said Barilaro did not indicate an interest in Trade Commissioner position at any stage of the New South Wales strategy development. I reject it in the strongest possible terms any suggestion or inference that the recruitment for the State Trade and Investment Commissioner America's role was orchestrated to deliver the role to Mr. Barilaro, he said, adding that the suggestion was incredibly offensive. In the 3 days, so we saw that we saw Matt Connell's statement. So his employment with Barilaro ended on a mutual agreement due to Barilaro ceasing to take my advice and seeking outside counsel. New South Wales Labor leader Chris Minns said Connell's statement was troubling because it suggested the selection process was rigged and there's been a month-long cover-up to prevent the people of New South Wales getting the real information. Leader of the opposition in the upper house, Penny Sharp, said Barilaro was informed in advance that the statement was being published and welcomed him to appear before the inquiry. I think that the point we're getting to is that it's very clear Mr. Ayres and Mr. Perrottet are going to have to come before the committee sooner rather than later. So it looks like Ayres and Perrottet and Braz are all going to have to appear before the committee. So it would seem that there is an uprising amongst the government ranks. So it's been reported, this is the Daily Telegraph, that there is an uprising amongst disappointed rank and file Northern Beach Liberals who fear election defeat after these scandals. So it's not looking good. So disappointed Liberal Party members on the Northern Beaches are revolting against the New South Wales coalition government in the wake of Job for the Boys and ICAC scandals now rocking state parliament. A respected party leader will move an urgency motion at a local party meeting calling on its parliamentary wing to resolve public confidence in the government because it could lose the March election. So next March is the New South Wales election. The motion drawn up by influential... Hello, Anthony. Anyone else see? Yes, I'm going to get to Daniel Andrews' press conference. I'm going to get to the Victorian stuff. I know. Yes, and it's interesting because if you remember, Anthony, that there were allegations made and he called for the investigation and he's taken on all of the recommendations. He hasn't denied any of it. So Patrick says he's going to lie through his teeth just like he did at ICAC. So the motion drawn up by influential And Anthony, the reason why this Andrews or the Labor Party IBAC in Victoria problem will disappear is because if the LNP open it up, they're also going to get done for the exact same thing. Because there's allegations in the Victorian LNP of branch stacking as well. So they're not going to want to open up that can of worms, Anthony. Plus, we know there's no opposition in Victoria, let's face it. I did offer my services to Matthew Guy. I offered to help him out. He rejected my help. Anyway, so Northern Beaches Councillor Pat Daly also urges the party to hold pre-selection votes to confirm candidates for later local state seats, Wakehurst, Manly and Pittwater as soon as possible. It's going to be a very difficult election. Mr. Daly told the Manly Daily on Thursday night the motion to go before the meeting of the Liberal Party Manly State Election Conference at Queenscliff Surf Club on Tuesday had been sent out to all Liberal Party members on the Northern Beaches and was generating big interest. He said there was a local uprising in the party after allegations were aired around the appointment of former Deputy Premier John Barilaro to the job as New South Wales Trade Commissioner. Local Liberal Party members were also concerned at a decision by ICAC to declare that former Liberal government minister John Sidotti had committed misconduct in public office. Mr. Sidotti has denied the allegations. He pressured local councillors on the City of Canada Bay Council to include his parents' function centre in plans to redevelop the suburb and use his position as a state MP to have Liberal pre-selectors look over the uncooperative councillors. So, whatever is happening, there's uprising. So amongst the rank and file in their own party. So the says I'm off to New York now. I have to say, Friendly Geordies has been Jordan Shanks has been stirring the pot a little bit. Let me just pull up his I really don't know what Barilaro could actually do because yeah, because anyway, this was Chris Minns. He shared this. Friendly Geordie shared this, and I think you're right, Anthony. I think they enjoy being in opposition. I think you're right. They've got no desire. So breaking, the secret evidence has just showed that Barilaro directed staff to work to convert the New York job to a ministerial appointment. Then it was fast-tracked to make the last cabinet meeting before he resigned as Deputy Premier. This is getting worse by the second. This was 3 hours ago. That documentation has not been released yet. And then someone else says, who else thinks it's very convenient for Don Perrottet to jet off out of the country as his New South Wales government is under a cloud over John Barilaro. Perrottet wanted Buzz gone as fast as he could. So there are now speculation that the reason why he was given the appointment was to get him out of the state. So this was Friendly Geordie. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I don't want to go to London. F that. I'm off to New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stay. I'll get them to put one in New York. That's where I'm off to. And then says, I just worry about, and then this person says, I just worry about Barilaro remaining in the country. Maybe a unit of New South Wales Police should keep an eye on him before he makes a start on his next colourful activity. So, but it would seem that he planned. So someone else has written, remember this is just all allegations, people speculating. Bruz planned his exit strategy move more than the year before your first Barilaro video. It seems like he may have perjured himself in court. So, interesting. As I said, it's it's very interesting that there's, when you start looking at the timeline between the Barilaro videos and his resignation saying it was a defamation. No, it wasn't a defamation. I think it was it Cal that said it was probably a distraction to hide his other stuff. And that probably is true. But the other thing is, so that was from Matthew Connell. The other interesting thing is that there was evidence given by his former staffer privately. So there was 2 former staffers that gave evidence. So we had the written evidence, and then we had this evidence. So this was all right. So again, evidence given in private on Tuesday to a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry by Barilaro's former policy advisor, Joseph Brayford, was released as a transcript on Thursday morning as part of the investigation into how the former Nationals leader was appointed to a plum position. The inquiry had that the process for a proposal to come before Cabinet should take several weeks, during which it circulates among relevant ministers for feedback. But Barilaro's proposal to change the recruitment process for the commissioner role went through within 10 days. The submission was lodged on the 17th of September and came before Cabinet about the 27th of September, a week before Barilaro's resignation on October 3. Labor MP Daniel Mookie described the timeframe as record speed when it comes to cabinet submissions. To have a cabinet submission go from proposal to passage in 10 days raises serious questions about why it was so urgent for that change to be made. In his evidence, Byford said it was unusual for him to receive direct text messages from the Deputy Premier. He, Barilaro, asked me to contact Investment New South Wales boss Amy Brown and request a cabinet submission converting the commissioner roles to ministerial appointments, he said. When asked if a deadline was given, Brayford said the timeframe requested was ASAP. The former staffer said he had no conversations about the proposal with Barilaro or his chief of staff prior to receiving the text. He said his interactions with the Deputy Premier were pretty infrequent, but the text message request did surprise him. Nothing really surprised me with John, Brayford told the inquiry. What does that mean? What does that mean? Nothing really surprises me with John. Labor's Penny Sharp said it was typical for cabinet minutes to be circulated among ministers for feedback before they were presented at meetings, and asked whether the proposal had been shared with the Premier, Treasurer or Investment Minister at the time, which would have included current Premier Dominic Perrottet and Trade Minister Ayres. I recall having a conversation with the Deputy Premier, and he said to me that he would talk to the other ministers, Brayford said. He said he did not recall Barilaro reporting back to him about the minister's feedback. Mookie said Brayford's testimony had raised serious questions. We need to know what conversations did John Barilaro have with Dom Perrottet and Stuart Ayres, which meant they could fast-track this through Cabinet in 10 days. Labor has asked government to provide further documents, such as Barilaro's application for the New York role and the panel report that recommends his candidacy to help the inquiry. The documents are due back to the Upper House on July 6. Really? That was July 21. You mean August 6? Because it can't be July 6. So, this is scary. So, speaking in Tokyo, Perrottet conceded he was disappointed that the mission had been overshadowed by the ongoing controversy. He said he did not work with Barilaro to expedite the submission to Cabinet to convert the appointments to ministerial picks, and it was the view of the majority of Cabinet ministers at the time that the Trade Commissioner roles should be decided by the Executive. However, Trade Minister Stuart Ayres, who replaced Barilaro in the job after he resigned from Parliament, then took the view that the appointment should be made by the public sector. Treasurer Matt Keane said on Thursday he was confident a separate public service review commissioned by the Premier would get to the bottom of what's going on here. Of course, I'm not going to play guessing games. Let's wait until the independent inquiry comes back with its findings. Then we know what's going on. Yeah, we want it to go to ICAC. We all want to find out what's going on here, but we want to make sure that we get the right result. They were trying to what they rushed through was the conversion of the role, so the Trade Commissioner role to the Americas, to make it from a public service role to a ministerial decision. They did it in 10 days. Thursday's evidence follows an explosive statement from his former chief of staff. So, yeah, it's definitely very, very, very interesting. It's interesting that 3 of the top 6 stories, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 about the corruption in New South Wales. So, what are your thoughts at the moment? There's something really smells here, doesn't it? There's something smelly. There's something on the nose, in my opinion. Something on the nose. So I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say at the moment. Just normal stock. Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree, Cal. Nobody should be leaving the country. I hope he gets found corrupt for at least for Geordie's sake. Well, it would be complete vindication. Well, then every decision that he made while he was in his role would have to be investigated. So let's have a look at Channel 7. So we're going to just go to YouTube for a minute. Oh, look, there I am. Right, so let's have a look at some news stuff. I haven't seen any of this.
Good evening. Sensational evidence has emerged at the inquiry into John Barilaro's push for a highly paid New York Post.
It's interesting how they've got. Look at the photo of him. Look at the photo that they've got of him. He looks very smug there.
Courtesy of New South Wales taxpayers. His former chief of staff says the former deputy premier was planning the move as early as 2019 and created the office especially for himself.
You've got to wonder, don't you?
After months of Labor accusations against former Deputy Premier John Barilaro, his $500,000 New York posting, now allegations from his own staff.
The revelations this morning are nothing short than explosive.
A statement has surfaced from Mr. Barilaro's former chief of staff.
So, I would say it is very explosive indeed.
Mark Connell, claiming that in 2019, Mr. Barilaro had a meeting with then Treasurer Dom Perrottet and Senior Minister Stuart Ayres and announced they were going to recall the Agent General in London.
Now, I'm interested why Perrottet or Ayres don't have notes of any of these meetings and can't pull up the notes and say, well, that's not what happened. This is what happened. But just to deny it, you would think that's... I find it astonishing that it's really after a federal election, MSN are reporting on John. Well, correct, Cal. And don't forget, it's also with us. Well, we've got the Victorian state election coming up, but there's a New South Wales election in March. But to be honest with you, as I said, because there is no, in my opinion, no opposition in Victoria, it won't matter what happens. He might lose his big majority, but there's no opposition. I can't even think of anybody that would make a good opposition leader in the Liberal Party at this point in time in Victoria. So there's no opposition. They have no alternate policies. I have to commend the New South Wales opposition because they are jumping and giving alternate policies at least at this point in time. But it's interesting also that in New South Wales, ICAC referred for criminal charges where IBAC, Victoria's equivalent, has listed recommendations, and all 21 recommendations, as I said, are being implemented. Tim Wilson? Oh, please, no. I actually thought Frydenberg might run as well. I still haven't ruled that out yet. He's still too busy licking his wounds. I'm leaving YouTube for good. Thank you for allowing me to mod. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Bella. You're always welcome at any stage.
This is it, said Mr. Barilaro. This is the job for when I get out of this place. Mr. Connell replied, but John, the Agent General role will be filled well before you retire. I don't want to go to London. That, said Barilaro. I'm off to New York. When Connell pointed out our current office is in California, Barilaro allegedly replied, I'll get them to put one in New York. With the issue now referred to ICAC, Labor says it's final proof
that this position was created for a friend, that the selection process was rigged, and that there's been a month-long cover-up.
From Mr. Barilaro, a denial. It's fictitious, false, and only serves as a reminder as to why we had to part ways.
I wonder if Barilaro is going to now talk about how his feelings are hurt.
Former Liberal Party Deputy Director, Mr. Connell worked for Barilaro for 3 years, but also advised Matt Keane, Barry O'Farrell, John Fay. What are the implications?
He's actually a very well-qualified advisor, to be perfectly honest with you. Why on earth? I mean, what's the guy got to gain? Let's look at this. Let's look at this objectively. What would somebody who has held high positions for New South Wales state ministers in the Liberal Party have to gain by lying? Let's just say, what's he got to gain by lying? Who loses the most here? His reputation, he probably won't ever be able to work for the Liberal Party again now because he's going to be seen as a snitch. But he has put everything at stake here to speak out about this. He actually has the most to lose here. What does he have by lying? This is just my point. And remember, Barilaro's already left politics. The only thing that Barilaro can try to do is protect his reputation. But does he have a reputation anymore? That's why he sued Shanks for, because he was saying that his reputation was stuffed. But these allegations come way before Friendly Geordies even came into play. We're talking about 2019.
Here for the Premier and for Mr. Ayres as well.
There's no way that this New York job could have been created without the permission of Mr. Perrottet.
But from the Premier, denials, saying that in 2019, at no point was it ever raised that Mr. Barilaro may want to hold a position as a trade commissioner. The New York position was created and offered to senior public servant Jenny West before Mr. Barilaro got the gig.
I think that the point that we're getting to too is clear that both Mr. Ayres and Mr. Perrottet are going to have to come before the committee sooner rather than later.
Mr. Barilaro says he now wants to front the inquiry and clear his name, but Labor have put his offer on hold for now.
And Chris Reason joins me now from State Parliament. Chris, those revelations were not the only embarrassment for the government today.
Good evening to you, Mark. No, not at all. ICAC has...
Well, that's right, Cal. Nobody knew who Buzz was until he got... I mean, he really should be thanking Friendly Geordies for making him famous, because that's what he did. But, oops, Sorry. Oops. I've just lost that. Hang on.
And Chris Reason joins me now from State Parliament. Chris, those revelations were not the only embarrassment for the government today.
Good evening to you, Mark. No, not at all. ICAC has now found, after a long investigation, that the former Liberal MP and member for Drummoyne, John Sidoti, did engage in serious corrupt conduct. The Independent Commission Against Corruption found that he used his influence on councillors from the Canada Bay Council to gain influence over redevelopment of the Five Dock Town Centre, and specifically 3 properties that he and his family owned there. Mr. Sidoti denies all those charges. Last year, Mark, he stepped aside from his position as Sports Minister, exiled himself to the crossbenches. Today, the Premier, Dominic Perrottet, said that was not enough, calling on him to immediately resign from Parliament altogether. That, of course, will trigger a by-election. As for Mr. Sidoti, his future now in the hands of the Director of Public Prosecutions. They may indeed now decide to press against him criminal charges. This has been a deeply damaging day for the Perrottet government, Mark.
Chris.
So, Buzz will be on Dancing with the Stars next year. Oh, maybe he might go do I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
Reason at State Parliament for us. Thank you.
So there you go. So that is what the mainstream media is reporting. I mean, they did block their eyes for it, so for a long time, to the point that they couldn't hide it anymore. But you know, it's so it's bizarre. That's all I want to I'm just trying to find the most up-to-date article, because it's going to implement the 23 proposals. It's pretty bad when Sky News is the only one that's talking about the 23 proposals that Andrews is talking about. So let me just talk about Operation Watts. And I guess people are saying that he needs to resign. I don't know. My preferred premier is now leaving. So if I had to, I preferred the old deputy premier. But look, he's apologised after the IBAC investigation. So this is the Victorian equivalent of the Anti-Corruption Commission. So the report released on Wednesdays by the Anti-Corruption Watchdog uncovered egregious and extensive misconduct by Victorian Labor MPs, including rampant nepotism, widespread misuse of public resources, and a culture of branch stacking dating back decades. Now, as I said, there are allegations of these same things in the Liberal Party. Now, I've noticed that really they've been very quiet on it, because Matthew Guy knows that if they start sniffing around his party, they're going to find the same thing. So, addressing the findings, Mr. Andrews said he took full responsibility for the conduct detailed in the report. What I don't know what they are, whether it's purely state members or whether this goes to a federal level as well. But anyway, the report table today shows absolutely disgraceful behaviour that does not meet my expectations or the expectations of hardworking members of the Victorian community. As the leader of the party and the leader of our state, I take full responsibility for that conduct. That is what the top job is about, and I apologise for it. He actually gave evidence in it. It was known as Operation Watts. It was a joint investigation between IBAC and the Victorian Ombudsman. So Mr. Sioma, I can't pronounce it, but it was in 60 Minutes in 2020, and The Age aired allegations of branch stacking by former State Minister Adam Simoniak. He was sacked while his former factional allies, Marlene, all resigned. So all the people related to him resigned. We criticise a legislative framework that provides few, if any, consequences for abusing public resources that allows for such conduct to continue unchecked, the IBAC Commissioner said. The difficulties in proof and the state of law are such we cannot recommend prosecution. There were numerous examples of unethical behaviour within the party. The evidence, which in both private and public, painted a compelling picture of jobs on the public purse according to factional loyalties and widespread misuse of public resources for political purposes. There's always discussions about factional teams, and even in the Liberal Party, in the previous Morrison government, they were talking about factions and everything. In the Federal Labor Party, they talk about factions. So the report made 21 recommendations, including an establishment of a parliamentary ethics committee and a parliamentary integrity commissioner, and reforms of Parliament's privileges committee to reduce the dominance of the majority party. There's a suite of reforms here that we would like to see implemented and not cherry-picked, but taken as a package. They will address what we see as broad corruption that was exposed by this case, Ombudsman Deborah Glass said. Despite the findings of this report, we would consider most members of Parliament, despite their party affiliation, genuinely seek to advance the public interest. We encourage them to demonstrate this by supporting this reform. Mr. Andrews said the government would accept all 21 recommendations. He said government would go further by introducing legislation barring major political parties from receiving public funding unless they properly policed party memberships, including ensuring memberships were paid by traceable means, and photo ID checks were carried out for new members. The anti-corruption watchdog said the investigation also did not uncover examples of traditional corruption, but decision-making said to fall within the zone of grey corruption that benefit MPs' associates but did not amount to criminal conduct. However, it warned that corruption could have deeply damaging effect on public confidence in democracy and institutions. The report also highlighted how little had changed since the Ombudsman 2018 report into its so-called red shirt scandal, which saw Labor campaign organisers employed as electoral officers in the lead-up to the 2014 election. Allegations of bad behaviour by our elected representatives still generate a disproportionate number of media headlines. The opposition's David Davis, there is an opposition. So the report showed Labor had learnt nothing from the red shirt saga. I don't believe the community can have confidence that Labor is going to take them into the future. Well, tell me, Mr. Davis, are you going to do them? Despite the facts of the report, Ms. Glass said she did not see any value in pursuing further investigations into the issues unearthed. I would have thought it's time for Parliament to get its house in order in relation to its own integrity, rather than to launch further investigations. These matters should not be for the Ombudsman or for IBAC. So branch stacking, which is used by party factions to recruit members, often by paying for their membership, amass internal political power and influence candidates. The practice is not illegal, but it is against Labor Party rules. So it's actually not illegal. So anyway, that is what's happening. And if you didn't know, Josh Frydenberg, our former treasurer, he's now with Goldman Sachs. He has a job with investment bank Goldman Sachs. He is the Senior Regional Advisor for Asia Pacific. We are fortunate to bring to Goldman Sachs such a person of Josh's deep public and private sector experience, connectivity, and insight. Well, what's the bet? They're going to have a loss. Or is that just really underhanded? Apparently, he worked for Deutsche Bank before he entered Parliament. The former treasurer, who in that role had responsibility for giving the final approval on a large bank foreign mergers and acquisitions of Australian firms, said he's pleased to join the bank. So there you go. So what do you think about former politicians going into these big influential roles And yeah, what do you think? And I noticed that Katie Joy has threatened to sue Molly Golightly too, which I find to be really quite interesting. Legality and ethics are two very big points here. Well, that's right. Something can be legal but unethical, and so branch stacking is legal but definitely unethical. So, and I think if they can deal with that, but as I said, branch stacking is common in both parties. That's really why we're not going to hear the Libs or the opposition here aren't going to open that can of worms, because if they start looking into, I mean, I still don't know how Tim Smith could have been the opposition Attorney General without a law degree. No one's been able to explain that to me. How you can have somebody as the head in the top law position of a state or the opposition, right, being the top law officer, which he would potentially be if he became, if they won, if the Libs won, Tim Smith would have been the Attorney General, the top law officer, without a law degree. I still don't know how that works. If only he didn't drink and drive, we may have found out. Isn't it also interesting that he's on Peter Credlin's show every night, and they showed the background of Sydney? He's canning. He is absolutely canning the Victorian opposition government. So I'd say very interesting. But then he's quick to bag the Andrews government, then bags the opposition. So I don't know what he wants. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. I just really wanted to give you the update on the Bras Job for the Boys saga, because it's just it's just every day it's getting more and more bizarre. So I just don't know. So if you've made it this far and you're on the replay crew, thank you for watching. Thank you everybody for being here live. I may get to come back because I want to talk about the Katie Joy stuff. I actually managed to get one of her lives, and Llama Girls put it into 2-minute clips for us, and has put them on her Twitter, which is really good because I couldn't sit and watch it again to do it. But really bizarre stuff happening. But if you are following that case, Marvin had a visit from his mother and he responded to her. He's off ventilation. He's off the ventilator. He responded to her voice. And you know, she was really happy when she was interviewed on Molly Golightly's channel. But KJ's not very happy because she's not getting all the scoops now. But anyway. So look, yes, so thank you for watching. I will catch you all. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And yeah, tell me what you think in the comments below about this whole Job for the Boys thing. Do you think it could be that this Barilaro saga was actually deliberate? That it was all set up for him to be able to walk away from a job, walk into a job when he retired? Has anyone heard whether, good to catch you, hopefully I'll make another one, but my schedule, your schedule's changed a lot, totally clear. So is mine a little bit. I'm away for the weekend. So I actually was having Saturday free, but I got asked to go, I'm going to a function in Caston. I've become somebody that goes to functions now, most weekends, it seems to be. So I'm in Caston tomorrow and Saturday. So I'll be back Sunday. So hopefully I'll be back. I do have a video that's going to schedule to drop over the weekend. And I'll see how I go. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope I can catch you again shortly. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. You know, maybe you want to support the channel by joining if you can. Otherwise, hey, tell all your friends about how cool we are and how much fun we have. All right, bye for now.